the UK's airspace effectively closed after that network-wide failure of the air traffic control computer system. Airlines are already reporting what will be up to 12 hours of delays and cancellations, they believe, with plane movements being handled manually to try to get them down safely.
NATS, now that is the air traffic control system based at Swanwick in Hampshire, says that its engineers are trying to fix the problem and has apologised for the inconvenience on one of the busiest travel days of the year.
Let's speak now to Sally Gethin, who's a travel and aviation expert. Talk about the wrong thing at the wrong time here.
Yeah, it's absolutely the perfect storm. And when I heard about this, I couldn't believe it at all, really, because in my career, which spans a number of decades in aviation, I have not heard of this happening. And especially now we are at this digitally advanced stage. Yeah. I mean, this is an air traffic control centre at Swanwick, which handles the upper airspace and also the major UK gateways, and handles 2.5 million flights a year, 250 million passengers a year. So where is the redundancy in the system? I think apart from all the huge disruption, and this will be for families coming back, this is the big inbound traffic day for the kids coming back to school, don't forget, soon. And, you know, this is actually unprecedented, and it's a very bad look, actually, for UK air traffic services.
Yeah, I remember when it opened and there was a great fanfare about this being state-of-the-art, the best in the world, and that this sort of thing could never happen.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when it was opened as well. I mean, you know, a lot of money was pumped into it, and a lot of tech. And it's literally like that movie, you know, where I think it's the airplane one, you pull the plug out of the wall and Only Kidding and puts it back in again. I mean, how could the UK's premier air traffic service control centre fail in such a catastrophic way on the worst day of the year, arguably?
And just to underline how serious this is, Sally, is it the equivalent then of every road in the country being shut?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good analogy. It's kind of like shutting all the motorways suddenly. Right. Can you imagine the backlog and the disruption and the anger, actually? You know, we get road rage, don't we? You also get air rage. I mean, imagine all those families, and but not just families, just anybody, also business people too will be affected. And, you know, being holed up in, you know, not being able to return to the UK at all. And I can actually, unfortunately, add another disruptive aspect to this is that as a passenger, your consumer rights will be badly affected because airlines are not responsible for this. Yeah. They can only give compensation if it's within their control, and this is way beyond their control.
And of course,
and normally they. Yeah,
I was going to say, I'm just looking at what the airports are saying, Gatwick, Heathrow, Dublin, and says, contact your airline. And of course, they are not the ones responsible for the problem. So the passengers and all the families will be going round and round with this.
Yeah, I mean, we know that some airlines, not all, have a very poor track record in providing good customer service anyway. You know, a few days ago, EasyJet and British Airways were cancelling flights and leaving some passengers, you know, badly affected and stranded. So, you know, in this scenario, it's like worst case scenario in terms of air travel today being badly affected by something like this. And can I say also, aviation is an international global industry, and I've been covering it for most of my career. And so it's a global village. And this is a very bad look for the UK in terms of aviation in that global sector. And we need more than ever to show that we provide reliability, resilience and robustness in our tech systems and globally in air travel. And so this looks absolutely ridiculous for the UK because we don't know the reason for it yet. But the fact that there isn't enough redundancy to compensate for it pretty much immediately is not a good look for the UK.
Yeah. National Air Traffic Services is sort of trying to clarify that UK airspace is not closed, but they have had to apply air traffic flow restrictions to maintain safety. But is it as good as it being closed, the problems that it's causing?
I think the problem is everything is so digitized now and it's so seamless. And in fact, NATS is working on next generation air traffic where, the actual distance between planes would come even closer based on the new digital era and the new system for managing air traffic, which is due to come in the future. So to have to take a step back and slow it down, maybe not halt it altogether, but just to reduce it to this level, is taking it back to more of an analog era, where it was more like done in a handover way. It's like going back to, say, the way ATC was done 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah, and they move these sort of wooden blocks from left to right for the independent sort of controllers.
They used to use strips of paper more. Yeah, I know what you mean. Not quite Churchillian, but yes.
So given that, I mean, I think looking at the airlines, Logan Air was the first to blow the whistle. I mean, they're effectively saying that, yes, the airspace is closed, despite Nat saying, no, it's not closed, because they literally can't get the flights through.
I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? It's the ambiguity of it.
Yeah.
It's like, different sources coming. You could suddenly say to me right now, we've had some new information just come in while we've been on air. It's that kind of confusion and ambiguity. And I think this does leave airlines in the middle, in a way, caught there, stuck between having to handle the chaos that it's causing and not really being privy to all the information or the knowledge about it, because air traffic services is quite a niche, narrow sector. Actually, I was the editor of a magazine called Air Traffic Management back in the day, when it started to become more privatized, the industry, with more tech coming in. And we launched this magazine at the company I was at purely for that sector, because it is like a walled garden. It's very niche. It has a different role. It's layered on top of airports, but it's separate to the airport. It's separate to the airlines. So airlines having to handle all this chaos, their passengers, they don't have that direct contact or recall with air traffic, except through their pilots, who are having to handle the situation in real time in the air as it happens. So it would be the pilots who are the front line for the airlines. But in terms of
Sally, I just wanted to ask you, because we were just looking at that flight radar picture and you can see how busy it is. If you are already in the air, then what are the pilots doing at the moment? Are they stacking? I mean, just explain to us what's happening up there.
Yeah, well, obviously, I'm not up there with them, so
You've got an idea,
hard. It's quite a new situation. But what they will be doing is, absolutely, it will be the Swanwick and which will be managing those flows, and the pilots will simply have to literally go with the flow in this situation. They'll have to obey those instructions. And yes, there is a stacking system called Holly, which is outside London, for example, for all traffic coming into Heathrow. And it's like 4 chimneys up in the air. I know that sounds strange, but that's how it visually looks. And they kind of spiral round in these distinct sort of like columns, if you like, in the air, and they have to wait their turn. Now, I suspect what is probably happening is that they will be trying to reduce that stacking and divert them away from the UK and probably get them down on the ground where they can. But then, you've got to think that's got to be liaised with those other airports in the rest of Europe or, outside the UK, where those planes need to be landed, and that causes a knock-on effect for all of European ATC. And, I can add also that this summer has been a bad one for European air traffic control. Anyway, there's been industrial issues with air traffic controllers in France. That's a whole civil unrest issue to do with politics and everything over there. But so there was bad weather, as you recall, over Europe, causing these disruptions with some of the airlines at the start of the weekend. So they're not exactly sitting pretty either, those other airports, and they're going to have to handle the fallout in traffic as well. And then don't forget, right, it's all backed up, and then everybody into this new week we're in now is going to have to slowly make their way back into the UK. And, you know, all those, like I said at the start of this conversation, all those people coming back into the UK on leisure airlines, in particular charter airlines, you know, TUI, Jet2, all of those planes will be fully booked anyway, coming in at the end of the bank holiday weekend into the UK. So, yeah, it really is worse timing.